So let's point to the second intangible you point to, that of flow. You say, quote, "One flaw of designers is pretending faster is always better and quick always equals efficient." And so then you point to the way in which data is perhaps best seen as flow. Kind of help us get our head around that sort of way of thinking of data, or thinking of the cities that we're in, or design in that regard.
Yeah, when you think of flow, data definitely flows, and let me unpack that in a second. But like, first envision yourself, envision a river, right? Like, that's what flow, like, so you can see that the water has movement to it. It's going from one place to another. There's some banks, there's some context around it. That water might be moving some stuff. It might be, churning up some silt or eroding along the way. So when we think of flow of something like data, we're also thinking about, what are those same elements? What is being moved from one place to another when we're moving information? What's getting kicked up along the bottom along the way? What's being transported that shouldn't? Where is that data pooling, and what's happening with it? And if you think about today, we're quite obsessed with moving things quickly, right? We equate speed with efficiency. And if you think of any app that you have, it's like trying to make your life faster and better and easier, quicker, more efficient. And that's not necessarily true, right? Because when you think about our productivity as Americans, the last 15-ish years, if we go back to like 2007, 2008, if you look at our productivity as a country, it stayed fairly flat, maybe like increased slightly. And at the same time, our microprocessor speed, so our ability to do things quickly, has continued to increase exponentially. And what that says to us is that there's this desire to compute faster, to make things better, to make things easier, but it's not really making our lives easier. Right. So we're moving data faster, but are we moving it the right way? Mm-hmm. Like, are we using it the way that we want to, that's really making our lives better? Like, that's the question, the discussion we'd love to even have.
Yeah. Yeah. It's common in discussion on ethics and technology for a lot of people to use a so-called instrumental view of technology, where the metaphor that's typically used is they'll say that technology is like a tool. It's amoral. It's like a wrench. You can use a wrench to fix a widow lady's car, or you can use a wrench to bash her on the head and steal her purse. It's just amoral. It's how you use it, is instrumental view. But along comes somebody like, and I mentioned this person to you before we started the show today, Jacques Ellul, and he suggests that while that kind of conversation about technology probably needs to be had, typically, to what end are we using the technology, that there's another question of what he calls characterology. It's a really weird word. I mean, he's writing in French, so I don't know about the translation there, but it's translated in English, characterology. And so what he's doing is he's saying all technology is not simply like a tool, but it engenders a sort of character in us as individuals, and it engenders a sort of character in us as communities. And if we don't look at the character that's engendered in us by a given technology, then we've failed to even begin to sufficiently see what's going on. And, as I was reading your book, I thought, it's like you guys are doing the kind of stuff that Jacques Ellul would have been really pleased to see you do, because you're asking lots of questions about what kind of people are we becoming, and what sorts of questions do we need to be asking ourselves about ourselves. So this is a classic one, right? This notion of efficiency, and always kind of assuming that the quickest way is the best way. So I don't know, any more commentary on what I said there about Ellul, or anything else you want to unpack on that?
Social media was not so easy to see the character of that, right? But in retrospect, it's actually pretty obvious. So initially, social media is about moving information around. It feels like the character is about connecting. It's about sharing with friends. We add something to it, which is sort of this algorithmic sorting based on popularity and attention getting. And then it changes the character, but we don't notice. We don't notice that the character has changed. But then obviously that leads to, if you're looking at images of people's bodies, you're going to have body image issues. There's something where it's sort of obvious in retrospect, and it's kind of confusing as to why it's not obvious beforehand. And I think our hope is that we can get better at kind of identifying that character as the technology is coming to be, rather than sort of figuring it out after the damage happens.
Yeah, yeah.